guess anytime, Troy.
Good. I'll stop this here and I'll stop sharing if you want to go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, whichever location you happen to be in the country. I'm Rick Stirling, and I'm with Western IM. You probably know us by now if you've been on any other sessions. I'll first introduce Troy Sawyer, who is my partner at Western IM, who actually manages and runs these webinars. Thanks, Troy. We really appreciate all the help you give us to get our IMCanadaConnect underway. So just a little quick discussion on IMCanadaConnect. It's an ARMA Canada Canadian chapter initiative. The way IMCanadaConnect works is every chapter puts one presentation, at least one presentation forward. And this month, it is the Saskatchewan chapter. As you saw the Saskatchewan flag on the screen there at the start. Records Here, There, and Everywhere is being put on today as a panel discussion by ARMA Saskatchewan. I'm thrilled to be on the panel with everyone else. I am going to just let everybody know, quick note that the chat is open. So if you want to ask questions or direct anything at the panel, certainly use your chat or Q&A. Troy, I guess Q&A is also open, whichever you prefer. Many people do use chat though. And I'm only going to introduce Sandra Bates, who will be our MC for the day. And then I'll go back to just being a panel guy. Here I go, Sandra.
Thank you, Rick.
So I just want to introduce Sandra. Sandra Bates is the spokesperson for digital transformation and a recognized professional in the security, information, and privacy industries. Sandra is the privacy officer and manager of records and access with the government of Saskatchewan, engaged industry volunteer with ARMA Saskatchewan chapter, and actively involved in other information and privacy groups and boards. Her published works include SAGAS, that's the Canadian ARMA publication, Starting the Digital Transformation Journey in a Pandemic, co-author in 2021, Handbook for Archivists, contributor, published in 2021. Sandra, back to you.
Thanks, Rick. So I'm going to start out today by acknowledging that Regina is on Treaty 4 land and also recognize all the treaty lands from across Canada where our participants are joining us from today. I would also like to say that I support reconciliation and the long journey of healing for our First Nations peoples. And I think this is especially fitting today as it's Bell's Let's Talk Day, which is about promoting positive changes towards mental health. So fight the stigma, talk and share experiences, and support those around you, as well as your own journey when it comes to our mental health. So be kind to yourselves and those around you, and not just today, but make a habit of it. So before we begin, I want to give a quick plug for ARMA Saskatchewan Chapter Conference, which will be held in May. The theme is Overcoming the Information Avalanche. There's a half-day workshop on May 9th, followed by a live in-person 2-day conference in Regina at the Doubletree. If you're interested, please check out our Facebook page, or you can scan the QR codes behind us. And we're really hoping to see you guys all there. So today we're here to talk about records here, there, and everywhere. And so we live in a world of challenges as records and information professionals. There's no end to the topics we could discuss. And as we do this monthly with all of you, I'm sure you realize that. And we all have our own journey and experiences with our ever-growing content that leave us dumbfounded. Today, our panel is going to have a discussion about their experiences and challenges faced in regards to inventorying, discovery, or management of records and information. So I'm going to begin by introducing our lovely panel. In no particular order, first we have Megan Maga. Megan, if you just want to wave. Megan has worked for Mosaic Company for the past 10 years. She is currently working as a global IT business analyst with a seat on the content management governance team. Previous roles include document and records control supervisor for North America business unit, Megan has also been a member of ARMA Saskatchewan on the board of directors since 2019, working to create community for our members. And I also want to add that Megan is also our marketing person who does a lot of our social media for us. And so we could not survive without her. And Jenny Leask. Jenny, you want to wave? Jenny works at the City of Saskatoon as the corporate records manager. She has worked for the city for 6 years. Previously, she was a health information management professional too with Alberta Health Services for 12 years, working with the Tom Baker Cancer Clinic and the Peter Lougheed Hospital in Calgary. I don't know why that's a tongue twister for me, but it is today. And she has also been on our board since 2019. And Jenny is our upcoming president for the ARMA Saskatchewan chapter. She is currently our president-elect. And Rick, nobody knows Rick. Rick, you can wave, although they all know who you are already. Rick is a 25-year RIM veteran who has been involved in absolutely every kind of information management project you can imagine. Rick is the president of Western IM and has served in almost every position you can name in ARMA at both the chapter level as well as the international, except the international president. So I want everybody to give a big welcome to our panel, and we're very happy to have you guys here today and talk about some of your experiences. So looking at our records here, there, and everywhere. We all engage in records inventory projects for a variety of reasons, whether it's for records inventory or access to information. Some of those record searches leave us wondering, how does this happen? Like, how do our records get into such a state? And where has gathering records inventory led you? Where are some of the places that you have discovered physical records, and in what state? Let us hear about some of the more interesting searches. And if I can, Megan, I'm going to start with you on that question. Sorry, I should have gave you a heads up so you were maybe actually listening.
I was listening. Yes, I've turned off all the other applications on my computer so that I can focus. So I work for the Mosaic Company. We're a fertilizer production company globally. We operate in 6 different countries. But part of our business here in Saskatchewan actually is we operate a number of mining operations. And so I have encountered records and had to do record surveys and whatnot underground. Thousands of feet underground, which is kind of interesting, and not something that everybody can say that they have run into. What some of those challenges are just, when you're working in a mining operation, there are only so many resources dedicated to bringing, of course, product to the surface, from underground to the surface. And that doesn't leave a lot of time for conveying people or non-vital conveyances, I guess. So you can imagine that when you're operating thousands of feet underground, historically there wasn't much connectivity electronically. So we actually had a number of records that were stored underground historically, because they would go down out of necessity, right? We're operating machinery, there were work orders, there were mining plans, ventilation plans, all kinds of interesting things that would need to be conveyed underground for use on paper. And we eventually had to decide, what do we bring back up to surface? What's vital to be moved maybe into a more appropriate long-term storage location, if any, because underground it's very hot and very humid and very salty. So you can imagine that some of the records we had stored underground long-term, they start to decay. And actually there can be some interesting things when you bring paper that's been stored underground for a long time up to surface, it actually starts to decay even more. So, we really had to dig into what is important, what are the retentions, what do we have underground, and what's worth bringing back to surface for long-term management. So that's kind of an interesting thing that not everybody runs into.
Jenny, do you have anything you want to add to that?
If only I had that cool of a story with going underground. Alas, no. But with the city, because it's like a bunch of different business units, that records are kind of all over the city. So we just manage the records program for the city, and we try to help direct the different areas. But we have gone out and helped them at a lot of with a lot of their physical filing and trying to get records off of or out of certain areas like outdoor sheds and golf course basements and maybe bathroom storage units. So they're kind of all over the place wherever they can squirrel stuff. So we've gone out and we've really tried to help people understand the importance of how to keep records, and how to store them properly and what to do if they don't have the room and how to get them off site to the offsite storage facilities. So we've kind of helped different areas work through that. And we're continually trying to push the importance of maintaining and keeping the important records in proper conditions for future use. So that's kind of some of our top highlights of special places that we've found records.
Thanks, Jenny. Rick, I'll pass it over to you now. I know you've been involved in some pretty interesting searches as well.
Yeah, let me see. I don't want to go to 14 different stories, but in relation to what Megan said earlier, we've done work for a lot of power companies over the years, and one particular project we did was a physical records inventory that spanned an entire province and over 110 different locations. Over 18-month time frame, 100,000+ boxes of records. So you can imagine what kind of stuff we found during that project. But one of the things I remember really vividly about that is the records that they found under the power dam. They had to go down under the power dam, like Megan said, underground to dig out these records. They weren't exactly in the best of shape either, of course, because of the humidity and everything that occurred. Another power company I can recall doing a project for, this was a kind of a paper records thing, is they had, we did a project there, and it was in the US, and it was an open pit mine, Megan, a big open pit mine. And you know how open pit mines get rid of things? They just take the old equipment and they put it somewhere in a corner, and they grade everything over top of it. Well, at one point we asked them about some e-discovery records they had put aside for an e-discovery that was taking place years ago, and they had put them in an old house. So we asked them if we could go see the records in the old house, and they said sure, and we went out there and there was no records there. So somebody had come to clean out the old house and put them in the location where the earth was graded down over top. So they were gone basically forever at that point. Nobody was ever going to find those e-discovery records ever again. Another location was records in a sea can. I've seen lots of sea cans with records in them for sure, because people run out of space. And like the provincial governments that don't have space in their record center for records, right? Same thing happens in private industry as well. I got a sea can or 2 or 3 sea cans full of stuff, and in one case, the records were called the squirrel records because squirrels had been in the sea can and had done damage to the records. So we referred to that sea can as the squirrel records sea can throughout the project. Just to say to everybody, if you are doing a physical inventory and there has been damage like that, for sure go to your safety and health folks and make sure that you do or don't have to wear suits to go into an area that's been contaminated like that. Don't ever try and do it just on the fly.
That's an excellent point, Rick. I think that the only thing in the world that likes records as much as we do is probably squirrels and mice and all those little critters.
Right. But the stories abound in all the times that we've been involved in physical records projects about the boots, the work boots and shoes in the boxes in the warehouse. That's a pretty consistent story everywhere I go, because at some point somebody retired and they just went into their office and they took all their stuff and they just whooshed it into a bunch of boxes and sent it to the warehouse. And so you find desk blotters and pens and boots, work boots, and all kinds of things like that. I've heard of partly eaten lunches as well found in those boxes. cleaned out the office and we're done. So that's kind of the physical record side of the house.
Yes, that I found that one time. I found a petrified half sandwich and moldy coffee in a box of records. It was delightful, I have to say. So
How
much
about you,
fun.
Sandra?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And then the other side of that too is what you said about, maybe having a hazmat suit, because I was doing a records inventory project, flipping through architectural drawings one time, and partway through, someone came down and said, those were involved in a flood. And I said, okay. And they said, yeah, a flood of toilet water. So I said, well, thank you for letting me know before I started. Yeah. So good to ask those questions up front. Always very good to ask those questions. So I'm going to move on to the next question here. And Jenny, if you're, I'm going to tell you in advance, not, give you a heads up, not like I did to Megan, just kind of
Okay.
So digital or electronic records have been unmanaged in many organizations for decades. And I'd say that's everywhere, whether you're in government, public, like any public service, or private enterprise. I think that's the case in most environments. Have you taken any part in cleanup of electronic records? What were some of the barriers you encountered, and how did you overcome them?
Good question. Good question. So I know everything kind of goes back to COVID and everyone working from home. And I will say that gave trying to manage electronic records a big kick in the pants, because prior to that, it was like a suggestion, or, like, oh, it's okay, but well, we have physical, so who cares, right? Like, but working from home, you don't have access to a lot of those physical records. So people had to depend on the electronic copy as the record, and then trying to manage it and trying to teach people that no, desktop isn't managing your records, and shared drives isn't managing your records, and like all these different places, and they don't even manage documents. Like, it's just like a plethora of icky, in my opinion. That's the technical term. You guys can share it amongst yourself. So trying to go forward, and then people reaching out to us, trying to get us to help them. From home, it's harder, right? To try to teach people and connect with people, and kind of wading through the water of learning how to use Teams, which is what the city uses for connections to others. So trying to teach people that way and getting them off of the shared drives. We have made a big stride forward since returning to the office. And we've had a lot of different areas reach out. The city's trying to get away from siloed areas and kind of move into a more mainstream, which is one of our strategic goals for the city, working together. And so we've been really trying to do that. We are in the process of getting our updated records management policy approved through senior management, and along with creating procedures on how to manage transitory records and electronic records management, and letting them know that, shared drives just isn't working. You can't search them. You can't manage deletions if it happens, whether it's, malicious or unintentional. It's hard for people to collaborate in that kind of workspace. And with the city, we're really pushing document management through SharePoint, with versioning control, recycle bin, a great collaboration space, and trying to get it so that people use it, realize the important functions of it, and then the ease of taking the records from there and, putting it into a records repository, and the ease of moving it over. We have had a lot of groups come forward saying, okay, we've got all these records here, and we need to move them here. And one of the big ones we just did was a payroll where their system was done, and we're moving it from their old system. We got it in a zip file, and we had to move it into our records management system, and we used a great tool from actually Western IM, their Whisper tool, which helped us do a huge batch file and move them from one section into the other. And I think it was 600,000 plus records. of payroll that they wanted to keep track of. And that was just one. Like we've and we're starting to work with other groups now, realizing that we can do that for them and help them with those kind of steps. And then the importance of maintaining it and being able to access it in a records management system, because some of these shared drives, they have stuff going back to like the 90s. I mean, how do you open those? Like they won't even open, right? Like what kind of program was used? I don't know. It's not even available anymore. But if they were in a record repository, a proper one that with the ability to open it, they'd still be able to view those, right? And have access to that information, which obviously they thought was important enough to keep forever on a shared drive. So we're really trying to push that forward with our team. And by team, I mean the city, thinking as a group as a whole rather than individuals. So we have had a lot of people reach out, and we're really trying to get this electronic records management. And I think pushing the policy forward and making it, like advertising it internally, and then the procedures that will help tie in like Teams messaging and managing stuff through a collaborative workspace rather than individual shared drives or on their desktop. Anyways, I'll pass it on. Go forward, people.
Thanks, Jenny. That was actually, I think you hit a lot of sore points with a lot of us. We've all been through experiences like that, and it's always kind of scary to bridge that gap. So I'm going to let Rick maybe jump in here and weigh in.
Sure. Well, first thing I want to say is if all of you are going, oh my God, I have shared drives, you're not alone. My kind of communication happens to people all across Canada, and everybody's still got shared drives. There's not a soul I talk to that still doesn't have them. So you're not alone for sure. I will say one thing though, just like paper, my first comment to everybody is take a sticky note, a little yellow sticky note, and write on the sticky note these words: if you don't know what you have, you can't manage it. And put it up in the corner of your screen or on your whiteboard or wherever that's going to go, because many people still don't even know what they have in their own repositories, in their own sites. So inventory is kind of all important to know what you have, first of all. Shared drives seem to be the bane of everybody's existence. And as Jen said, it's you can't really index the documents in a shared drive without doing a little bit of work outside of that whole kind of repository to do that. So it does become a little bit shaky for people to try and find things again. There are ways to do that, of course, but it's not out of the box easy thing to do. So the other thing is people are very embedded. Like a lot of those silos that Jen talked about as well are true everywhere I go. Everybody's got siloed business units with siloed information, and they live and breathe on their, particularly mining and power, and that they live and breathe on those SOPs, standard operating procedures and documents and drawings and things like that they have document control wise, and they know where they go, and their teams know how to find them there. And so that the tricky part is, if I'm going to shift them from that place that everybody's comfortable with, how do I do that and still leave them able to find them easily in the other location that I'm putting them in? So there is a balancing act from a records management standpoint when you're going to do that shift from clean up that shared drive and move things to another location. How easy is it going to be for those groups to actually find those really critical records that they're used to finding now? That's kind of the thing that keeps me awake some nights is, as records management professionals, we've always tried to create a classification system and create that on a shared drive kind of environment, and went, okay, we're going to move everything into our new classification system. And the users went, oh my God, we can't find anything if you do that. We don't know how that works. We don't know where it all went. And it becomes a little bit trickier. So that's kind of my comments on that. The other thing is trying the timing on all those issues of cleaning up shared drives is so vital because in a larger organization, you can't do it all at once. There is a timing issue there. So you can clean up one business unit, but you have to leave you're kind of leaving the rest alone while you're cleaning up the one business unit. And it's kind of a long-term moving through time kind of thing. And the timing becomes very critical as to how that's all going to be done and who you're going to do first and how you're going to do it first. It is very, very tricky, and takes very time consuming. And if you are not able to kind of classify behind the scenes and leave the users alone, it sometimes becomes a bit of a turf war. In my opinion, sometimes in the departments of legal and HR are the two kind of toughest ones to deal with in that regard. Often engineering is another one that becomes fairly tricky to deal with, as many of you have to deal with those groups now, and it's not easy. Yeah. That's kind of it all has to be cleaned up. I agree. It has to be cleaned up. The standard, by the way, in a shared drive that has not been cleaned up in the past, 40 to 60% can go. If you can take a classification system and apply it to that shared drive, that's the magic number for the industry, is 40 to 60% can be gone. And I'm not talking about megabytes anymore. I'm talking about terabytes. It's the T word now, and not the M word. It's way bigger as an issue than we ever had to deal with in the past.
Thanks, Rick. That's awesome. Megan, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, everything that Jenny and Rick mentioned, resonates with me and what I've encountered. To add to that, I think to follow up on what Rick said, I think resources are tough, right? And I'm talking internal resources, record owners. Do they have the time to take a look? We can't, much to the point of we can't do things in a silo. Well, the records management teams and those resources can't just walk in to a part of the business, whatever that business is, and say, hey, here's what we're going to do, right? So it takes a lot of teamwork and collaboration and communication and planning, because it is often a long-term change, right? None of it is one and done. It's very much continual improvement. And then I think the other thing that I've run into, and I don't think it's talked about quite as often, is I have run into a lot of hesitancy to destroy or to leave content behind. And I think we need to have some conversations with our business teams, with our legal teams, whoever those leaders are, to have those conversations up front. Because if there is no intention to, say, take a shared drive and leave that 40 to 60% behind, whether that is locked in a read-only format or just planning for destruction of that, it's very difficult not to end up in lift and shift situations where really we're just replicating the issue that we had in the network drive, right? For example, and that can be with any legacy document management system or any information repository. So those are the only things I would add.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you guys more. That I know we've done a few cleanup projects where on the shared drive, some of the folders where we've gotten up to 90% of it was just gone because it was outdated transitory information that really was of no use. So I'm not even going to go on to the next question, because you guys are getting like some response to this question. So
yeah. You want to read through them? Yeah.
I'll go ahead and read through them. And so I'm first, like John or Jen, sorry, I really like your comment here, where me and government, you can tear shared drives out of the most government employees' cold, dead hands. And you know what? Being in a government environment, I have this conversation weekly. It is so true. So that kind of resonated with me there. And so I have a question here, Jennifer. It's more for you, but the rest of you jump in if you have anything to add. Jennifer, are you using SharePoint on premise or SharePoint online? And are you looking to use the records management functions in SharePoint or Whisper, Agile IM, or some other platform?
Good question. We use SharePoint online. And we're only using it right now for document management and collaboration as a workspace. We are looking at what kind of records management repositories are out there, because we are up to do one for 2024. Currently, we use Documentum with OpenText, as our records management. So we do move records from SharePoint Online when they become records into Documentum so that we can put them in their retention and proper file coding. So we do that. And it's actually, we're really pushing it, and city clerks kind of, because we're part of the city clerk's office with the city, we're really trying to push digital transformation is what we're calling it. And our office, again, likes to lead by example. So we're actually in the process of moving them from paper dependent, because right now we file both paper and electronic, to more just the electronic portion. So we're in the process. So we want to lead. So we were going to do that, and then we're going to push it out to all the lovely people within the city. Gently, gentle hands. But yeah, we really want to get it going forward, and with great support, top down. It's been really good so far.
Yeah, that is a major transition,
Mhm.
and it's one we've embarked on as well. And best of luck to you. Thank you, John, for that question. Next one I have here, it's directed at Jenny, but I think you can all probably jump in on this one. And it says, so as you work to get records creators to transition from using shared drives to SharePoint, are there some minimum RIM standards that you suggest to users when they come to use SharePoint?
We actually, here, people have to come forward, like groups come forward to us saying, we want to move forward. We want to get more electronic. And we tend to do it like, so we kind of stay with them step by step. So we go over what is a record, just so they know the difference, because a lot of areas just do not know what a record is, and then they tend to keep too much, right? Like, it's like, let's keep it forever. And we're like, no, we don't need to keep it forever. So we go through what is a record, what is not. And we really try to use terminology that they would resonate with, right? Like, we don't, in records, we like to use like record specific, and they'll be like, okay, and then they gloss over, they don't know what you're talking about, and then you've kind of lost them at that point. So we really try to match our tone and what we're teaching with the people that we're teaching it to, right? So we start with, what is a record, what is transitory, what do you need, what don't you need, how long is it? Like, we walk them to the whole step. We go with them. They open up some examples in their shared drives, and I mean, it's a folder within a folder within a folder, and then they're like, Bob stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what Bob stuff is, but we're gonna and just try to get them to kind of figure out, like, this is like garbage, this is important, this is good, and then kind of walk them through that. We don't do it for them, we just support them the entire way, and then we show them the benefits of SharePoint. We're really gung-ho in our office about SharePoint, and for the records portion of city clerks, we have gotten rid of our shared drive, and we're totally on SharePoint, which is good for us. Again, we like to lead by example, so we cannot, we don't just do what I say, we also do what we say as well, right? So, and then we try to help them through all that. So we teach them our record standards for the city. We teach them our policy. We teach them what a record is and what isn't, and what you should be looking for, what you don't need. And then really, do you need to keep this forever? If you think it's a record, do you need it forever? And then we is there legislation? Is there regulations? And then operationally, do you need it? Do you? And then we kind of go that way with them. So, and we try to keep it friendly and keep over conversation, talk back and forth, right? Like, we're not there to judge, we're just there to help and try to keep with our records and classification schedule, which is a part of our city's act. So yeah, that's what we do here.
And Megan, Rick, did either of you have any experience with that as well?
I can say, I've got a fair bit of experience with that too. And I think Jenny alluded to it, is that keeping it simple. I think we have a tendency, just in business in general in 2023, to overcomplicate things. And it becomes overwhelming. So keep it simple, make it relevant, and that, and the caring element. We just want to make what you're doing easier for you to do, right? And I found that that's been sort of the best method. Anything else just makes people's eyes glaze over, they throw their hands up and they're like, nope, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, so.
I would just wanted to say, I wanted to answer that last question just in a little bit different way too. So because we get involved in so many different kinds of projects like that, is that there's only so many ways you can do records management in SharePoint. One of them is to actually use the Microsoft Purview style records management component. And as complex as that is, I'll get back to that in a second, but that's one way, although you need a bit of cash because you're pretty much buying E5 licenses from Microsoft at that point in order to do that full meal deal that you need to do. The other way, of course, is to manage in place. And for that, you need an external tool. And I don't want to sound like a sales, I'm trying not to sound like a sales guy, but we do have tools that allow that management in place. And I would say that most of the people I talk to in the country do not have the IT resources or technical expertise to be able to do purview like records management, disposition, and tagging in a SharePoint, in a true SharePoint kind of way. It is a very complex job. You can do it, but it's not for the faint of heart. You need some horsepower and some money and some people that really can deal with that complexity. So most of the smaller clients I talk to particularly are kind of shake their heads. And one story was the best way to describe that. Records manager for a Crown corporation, and her IT person went to the training course on records management in SharePoint. And after 2 days, she turned to the IT fellow and said, and they both looked at each other and went, "We're not doing that." And they were done. They needed some other way to deal with that records management component. So I just wanted to say that there's other ways to do that than dealing directly inside SharePoint. And that's where I'll just leave it at that. But you pretty much to be able to do all of those things, you kind of need some proper tools. There's some tools, not lots of tools. There are some tools that can assist in that regard. And you do need some tools. You can't do it manually very, very easily. You kind of need some help. So electronic help to make some of that stuff work.
Yeah, I would say I agree, Rick. We do use SharePoint and Teams for collaboration at Mosaic as well, but we also use an open text content server or content suite for formal records management. So yeah, we're not using those fairly costly SharePoint options right now either.
Great. No, that's awesome. Great discussion, you guys. The next question I have here is, what strategy do you use to clean up shared drives? So go ahead, jump in, any one of you.
I'd be happy to start that conversation off. Because shared drives are kind of the Wild West in a lot of cases, and for a lot of those reasons we talked about previously, it's a tough gig to try and do that. And a lot of people, I think, start to do that by, as I stated it before, they start doing that by saying, we've got a new classification system. They have a vision of transferring that classification system out on the shared drive and lifting and shifting, which I call it as well, Megan, same thing, to that kind of new structure before they go ahead and move it to SharePoint or wherever else they're going to move it to, eventually OpenText or Documentum or whatever they happen to want to use. But it confuses the users dramatically. And there's a huge, as I mentioned earlier, a huge timing issue with doing all that. It takes a long time, and you can really mess everybody up if you don't do it exactly the right way. So I tend to like the ability to classify, using some kind of tool to classify passively in the background so the users don't get affected negatively during that process. It also means that you can go ahead and do that without the users attacking you in the hallways because you've messed up their livelihood of finding things in their own shared folders in those locations. So I hate to be attacked in the halls during a project. It's not a good thing.
Well, it could be exciting. I don't know. That's actually good input. Jenny, Megan, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or
I would say, in all the projects that I've been involved in, don't ever plan on a second touch. Don't let anybody on your team plan to come back to do any portion of what you're doing. The second touch will never happen. There will never be enough resources to circle back and do a second touch on whatever it is. So when you're project planning, plan on looking at everything once, because the chances that you'll circle back are slim to none. And that's oftentimes where people lose touch with what they need, and the frustration skyrockets, right?
And you know that I think that's a very good point, because I know we did a shared drive cleanup here just for our branch. And in doing so, we schedule dedicated time every week to work on that. And we had it done within a month. And one of the other things I would suggest is duplication, right? Is we got a duplicate finder just to go through our drive for us. And we had over, I think it was 77 gig of duplication within our drive alone. So we made an executive decision to just keep the latest of everything, because it was massive amounts of records, and just the rest were just gone, right? So, but Jenny, did you have anything you wanted to jump in on that conversation?
I will just say that we don't put, like, when people call me specifically and ask me, yeah, I push like, get rid of your shared drive if you can clean it up. But I also let them know that to use the resources we have in place, right? Your IT is there to support you. And our IT has a special SharePoint team. I'm like, if you want to move your information to SharePoint, utilize the people that are in place to help you. So they can help you set it up the way it makes sense to you, because I'm not using their SharePoint site. The way I set up mine is going to be different than the ways they set up theirs. Utilize the team and get it set up for you. And my other thing is, if you need the records that are in your SharePoint or in your shared drives, they can't stay there forever, because again, like I said earlier, you cannot open certain documents after a certain period of time because of the program used. If those are important enough to keep them on your shared drive forever and a day, and it's something you look forward to or you need to research, get them out of there, get them into the newest format, and put them where you can access them and they're easy to find and you can document them. But we really stress utilize resources. Like, we've created articulate courses that people can reach out and click on if they don't want to hear us talk, and they can read it at their leisure, like how to do this, how to do that, what's the importance of document management, and use it. Like, use what you have because it's there for you. So we really try to push that so that people do know how to use it, or aren't scared to move their information from one place to another, or the benefits of moving it. Like, if you push the benefits and not the negativities or the legalities, like you have to do this, you know what, this would help you because it's going to benefit your team, and people are more likely to move that way. So that we really try to push the positive and the resources at our fingertips.
I think that's a great point, right? Pushing the positive, and along with that goes getting buy-in. And so one of the other questions here is, what are your suggestions for getting senior leadership to buy in for an inventorying project? And I don't care if this is an inventorying project or a cleanup project or what it is, introducing new technologies, right? So what do you do? How do you get that senior leadership buy-in? Because without that, you go nowhere, right? So let's hear it. I am particularly interested in this question.
I'd love to chime in on that. First of all, if we segregate that out into paper first and electronic second, because it's a little bit different kind of buy-in experience on paper and electronic. A lot of people that I run into still have thousands of boxes of paper in offsite storage or their own locations, record centers, et cetera. And the common thread for that one is, we're paying money for this space. We're paying money in Iron Mountain or Access to store this stuff, or the record center, the provincial record center's bugging us, and they want us, clean some of that stuff up. They don't have room. We can't put more boxes in. All those kind of things come up. So from a paper side, it's more about we should get rid of a lot of this stuff if we can. The average I know from our industry is, again, it's about 40 to 60% can be cleaned up if you have never gone in and weeded everything out before. So closer to 60 on the high end if you've never done it before, 40 if you've kind of done some of it, but had to go back and validate what you had in inventory, first of all. And that's kind of the saga for paper. It's mostly about cost of storage and space usage and that kind of thing on the paper side. On the electronic side, some of the reasons that people go in and go after that kind of project of cleanup is more related to not so much the disk space is expensive, but it is. I mean, it costs a lot of money to buy. People think disk space is cheap, but that's not necessarily true. A good RAID array of drives that people use for that kind of thing and or cloud storage is not cheap anymore. And you got to manage it still. So there's the time to manage it and the cost of the storage, but that's not really the big deal in my mind. The big deal really is I can't even back it up anymore in a day. So I've heard that several times in the last little while. We have 25 terabytes, we have 18 terabytes, we have 15 terabytes of stuff, and we can't even back it up anymore because it's out of control. The volume of increase is exponential. And so we have to do something about that in order to put it under some kind of control. And I'm not really a big believer in lifting and shifting, Megan, like you said earlier, same thing you said. It's not really a good thing. It's just the fastest thing people can do sometimes is just take it all and move it, which means they then have two shared drive environments to deal with instead of one. So it kind of increases the volume of that issue. And just before I leave and stop talking about this, I had one other thing to say about shared drive cleanup too, and or cleanup of any component like that is everybody keep in mind that you need subject matter experts in place in order to do that. We haven't really talked about that, but COVID has caused a lot of people that were of retirement age to really think about leaving if they haven't already done that. So we're losing subject matter expertise at a very prodigious scale right now. And if you can get authorization for an inventory, I think that's a point of to make with senior management that we are losing subject matter expertise in our organization. And we need to do this before those people actually retire. So we have the expertise internally to go do those jobs. I think it's a big selling feature for any kind of cleanup or project of that kind right now today. And or the space we're going to recover. Don't forget, many organizations are downsizing because people are still working from home. So they don't need as much kind of bricks and mortar space as they had once upon a time. And therefore, they may be in the background, you may not even know about it, but I'm sure senior management is thinking about downsizing some of those office spaces. And that's another potential for getting management to buy into these kinds of projects of downsizing like that. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
No problem, Rick. Actually, I didn't realize I didn't have you pipe in on that one. So, but to follow up with this other question here, getting senior leadership buy-in, do any of you have any magic answers to that one? Because it's a lot of work from my experience to get that buy-in. And the approach you take, again, I think is looking at the positive in it, but I would be happy to hear because I think both of you, Jennifer and Megan, you have these systems in place. And so how did you do it? How did you get them? How did you get the buy-in?
I can jump in there if you want. I think a lot of it has to do with finding your senior leadership allies. As things come up, as you're working with people, listen to your senior leadership and see if they have any priorities that would be well supported by whatever you need to get done, and turn it into something that will support them to get what they need done. It really helps to build allies or stakeholders that you can then use to help you build your business case, because that's what it is, right? It's selling a business case to your senior leader. And I know I've had the best success when you can say, oh, I heard so-and-so talk about their global digital acceleration. what does that mean? I know we're going through the same thing, right? And what can we do to support those efforts? So maybe that's a reduction in cost for cloud storage, or sunsetting legacy systems, or in-house built systems that are costing a lot of money to support. Maybe we can help find an angle to reduce some of those costs, and in turn that might get you some resources or some support to move forward. That's what I've had success with.
Great, thanks, Megan. Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Sure. For us, honestly, again, like Rick said, COVID, and a lot of people went to retire, or were at the age to retire. And that also kind of, like, I know it took away a lot of the knowledge that hopefully they captured in records, but who knows if they wrote down some of their stuff before they left. But it also brought in a new era of people with a different mindset. So here at the city, like, yeah, we did have some people retire, and it really did hurt a lot of the information that we lost when they left. But it left an opening for new approaches, new ideas, and being able to support. So with the city's strategic goals, like there's like losing trying to improve our environmental footprint, trying to go more smart city. And again, this is just specific to our city. So, I mean, it's different with different companies or groups, but we tried to tie in that when we wanted to bring in upper management support. I have a great manager myself, and she was in the records position. And so she knows the importance of, and then we have a new city clerk, and he is very, has a youthful mindset that, okay, let's invite this change. Let's challenge what's going on. Let's bring it forward. And you want a spokesperson for our team? Let me tell you, this is the guy. So he took it forward to senior managers. They were like, yeah, like, you're right. And like Megan said, tie in how it wins for them. Yeah, we can reduce our carbon imprint. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we can make it more of a smart city. What do we do to get there? You tell us how we can do it. And baby steps. I'm not saying that we're there and we're living large, we're living the dream, but with baby steps and all of us starting to work together, it's working. And we still have some old school thought, along the senior management team. And sometimes bad things have to happen for them to realize the benefits of what's right in front of their face. And unfortunately, that has happened, where you get like breaches of, when it goes to, OIPC and everything like that. But it kind of gives the old a kick in the pants, saying, okay, we really got to get this under control. How can we manage it? How do we move forward? And with that kind of support, and unfortunately having to get a kick in the pants to get you kind of back on track, we're working together. And it's to have a great manager that will take you and your stuff to the next level, and then a continuous on that way. And if not, just sell your stuff on how it benefits everybody else, because everyone wants what's best for them.
Yeah,
so sell your stuff.
That is so very true. And I think this is our last question here, but I just want to finish it up, Rick, from a vendor perspective. How do you have any advice to give to people on trying to get that the leadership buy-in from their executive when they're looking for tools to help them with their RIM environments?
Yeah, I guess I would love to say that RIM is first and foremost on everybody's mind in every corporation at the senior management level. And that's, of course, not absolutely true. So my experience is, Jen pointed out very nicely, that it's about taking those baby steps and getting buy-in from everybody along the way. Senior management, in my experience, often works best on what's good for them. So if you can go to the plan of where the senior management wants to take the organization, whether it's private or public, everybody's got a plan they want to go forward with. If you can take that and mold it up to your what you can do in the RIM side, that'll give you a lot more horsepower to go and get things from people. If you're in the private sector, my experience is that often money talks. So it's kind of bottom line. If you can show me where we're actually going to save some money somewhere, i.e. storage cost with Iron Mountain or Access, i.e. less office space required because we're cleaning up a lot of stuff that lives in those places, less management of electronic files and cost saving there. It's all about kind of saving cash. Government, not so much. It's more about what's going to help my plan go forward, more so than the money side. But that's really the bottom line that I've been involved in over the last 25 years. It always equates to the same thing. Not much has changed, really. I mean, I think COVID has helped us it's hindered us, and it's helped us in some other ways. I would agree with Jen that in some cases it allows a kind of younger generation, different people come in, they think maybe differently about some of that stuff. Maybe you can use some of that vibrancy in the side, that side. But I still, on the other hand, it's a negative when I lose those subject matter experts that actually know where everything is and why it was created in the first place. And, oh yeah, well, that's when we cleaned out Bill's office. And, I mean, that's the kind of motivation there. So, but money for private sector talks and working the plan for the government sector seems to be the best kind of thing to go by.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. And, Peggy had a comment here. Senior management wants to see a return on their investment, whether it be money or staff resources. And I can't agree with that enough, because I know that for us, there are studies out there on retention of staff, and the younger staff coming up do not want to stay any place where they don't feel that they have the tools to do their jobs effectively. And I found that for us, that was a very good selling point with our executive, as well as like with the ROI, right? So absolutely, these are all good points. So I think I'm going to finish it up there. I don't want to insert a new question because we're not going to get everybody a chance to pipe in on that. But I do want to say for those of you who are still here, because I see a few people had to leave, in February, we are looking to have a roundtable session in Saskatchewan ARMA, where we just want to throw things like this out there and have a conversation much like today, but it's interactive. And if you feel you want to participate, check out our Facebook page. We don't have anything up there just yet, but we will in the coming weeks. And we can discuss things like this, and everybody would be an active participant. We used to do this quite regularly in Saskatchewan, and we got away from it for a while, especially during the COVID season, for lack of a better word. And I'm not too sure why we did, but we want to bring it back now because we all love doing it, and we're going to be doing it again. I just want to say again, please check out on Eventbrite or our Facebook page or any of our social media sites. Yeah, scan it. She's pointing. And overcoming the information avalanche that's coming in May, a live conference. We're really looking forward to see people again. We're very excited about that here. So I'm going to hand this back to Rick and Troy. And thank you all for coming today. We love that you all came out, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Thanks, Sandra. That was great. That was great. Thanks for letting me be on the panel. I really enjoyed it, as always. Being with all of you is fun for me. I really appreciate it. Just wanted to say to everybody, the two streams of Canadian content that we do right now. One is Western IM does the Learn With Us program, which many of you are on a regular basis, and the other is the IMCanadaConnect side. So next month, the Learn With Us session for next month will be really interesting. It's Nicholas Fonseca actually doing that presentation, and it's based on cyber insurance and how insurance companies think about cyber insurance related to risk, IT, and security, and RIM. So I think for any of you that want to come on there, bring your IT people and your risk people and your security people onto that discussion as well, because I think they'll really enjoy it. Sign up for that and send it around to your other groups that are going to be on. The IMCanadaConnect one for next month will be all about getting ready for RIM month and what you can do, because April is RIM month in ARMA. And it'll be very important to get ready for that and maybe have some functions in the office to relate to RIM month. So it's all about some ideas and thoughts about what you can do during RIM month at your office. So I think it'll be really a fun presentation as well, and very well attended. So thanks, Troy, very much for looking after things today and doing all the stuff you do. And so thank you so much to the panel. Really appreciated it, and look forward to working with you all as I have for years. So love being there. Thanks again. Everybody have a great week, rest of your week, and thanks for being at the session today. Hope you enjoyed it. It'll be posted pretty quick. Troy's always pretty fast with that. It'll be on the IMCanadaConnect location on the Western IM website within a day.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everybody.